Defining your schema. Everything in Mongoose starts with a schema. Each schema maps to a MongoDB collection and defines the shape of the documents within that collection. So in this video we're gonna focusing on building a schema using Mongoose to connect our database to our backend. So in the previous video we created a MongoDB account. We created the full stack. This is my database and examples is my collection. So I modify it from example just to examples. So if you go to Visual Studio Code, if you follow along, in line 12 when I have the app.use, inside of the single quotes I have the API/example, so I just added an extra s. So that is the only modification that I did. And then in the environment variables, well, we have this, the Mongo URI, and we have the name of our database here. So that is that. So in this video we're gonna focusing on creating a schema. So in the backend we're gonna create a folder. So we're gonna be in the backend and we're gonna be creating a folder, and we're gonna name it models. So it's gonna be like that. But first, if we go to our package.json, we have our scripts. In my case I modified this one too, so instead of example now it's example. So if I type npm run examples, okay, our server should be running. Okay, it's starting on node, MongoDB connected. Okay, so our server is working, is on port 8000 and is connected to MongoDB. So it's connected to our MongoDB account. So that is that. And if we go to Postman, if you have installed, if we go to localhost 8000/API/examples and we click send, we are gonna get methods. If we go to the post method and we click send, we are gonna get the post method. If we go to put, and we're gonna get put method, and I'm just putting a random number here, the delete method, and yeah, everything is working. And these methods comes from the controllers, from our example controller.js, as you can see here. So that is the basic thing. So right now we're gonna create our information. We're gonna be sending information. So if we go to post, we go to the post method and we go to body, and we go to x/www form/URL encoded, and we type, for example, we click here and the key is going to be text, and the value it can be, I don't know, first example. Let's make it like this, first example, and let's say we click send. Okay, so nothing's happening. Okay, why? Because we need to use error handler. So if we go here to the Express website, error handler refers to how Express catches and processes errors that occur both synchronously and asynchronously. Express comes with a default error handler, so you don't need to write your own to get started. So that's what we are gonna do. We're gonna go to our server.js file, and we have this here, this example. So we're gonna use the request.body. The request.body contains key value pairs of data submitted, and the request body by default it is undefined, and it is populated when you use body parsing middleware such as express.json or express.url encoded. As request.body shapes is based on user control input, all properties and values in this object are untrusted and should be validated before trusting. For example, request.body.view that toString may fail in multiple ways. For example, foo may be there or may not be a string, and toString may not be a function and instead a string or other user input. So we're gonna go to our server.js, and we're gonna be creating this. We're gonna be using the app.use express.json. So if we go to our controller folder, and we have here our controller file, and since we want to create something, first of all, let's say here we have our function post example, and we want to create something, and we type, for example, we cancel that log, and we cancel that log, request that body, like this, request that body, and we're using request that body because if you go here to the post method, you have the option params, authorization, headers, and body. So as you can see here, we're not getting anything. And if I click here, I don't know, here text first example, and I click send, okay, nothing is happening. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go to the server.js, and below of the app function, we're gonna use the app.use, and we're gonna be using this example for parsing application. We're gonna be using app.use, and it's gonna be express.json, like this, express.json, and we have to put parentheses at the end. And now we're gonna go below that, and we're gonna be using app.use, and this time is gonna be express.url encoded. So it's gonna be express.url encoded. We're gonna open curly braces, we're gonna open parentheses, and okay, I did it backwards, so it's gonna be like this. We're gonna put here, and we're gonna open parentheses and then curly braces, and we're gonna have extended, and it's gonna be extended colon, and we're gonna set it to false this time. If you set it to true, is for parsing application from the www form URL encoded. So if we do that, let me see, we go to our post method examples. Okay, nothing is happening yet. Raw petty visual postman. Okay, so we are using the express.json and the express.url encoded. So what we are gonna do now is we're gonna create our model, but first of all, in our example controller.js, we're gonna be using asynchronous, since we're gonna be dealing with Mongoose, to connect our database with our MongoDB, to connect our backend with our MongoDB database. So we're gonna be using async. So we're gonna be using async like this, and we're gonna be using async in all these functions. For the delete too, we are gonna, okay, so we are using asynchronous, and as you can see here, it took a while, but now, okay, it took a while, but now you can see null property text, and it says here first example. So as you can see, we send it, and let's say second example. We're gonna send it, and let's go to our, okay, so as you can see here, it's showing. So if you wanna send some message and the key, you type text or email or whatever. In my case, we're gonna use the text field, and the value is gonna be set an example, since my roots are named example, my collection is named examples. So we have that, but for this to be working, we need to go into our server and we need to use the it was the require.body, and we need to use these two pieces of code, the app.use express.json and the app.use express.url encoded. So that is that for now. And right now we are in the controllers JS file, and we're going to be using asynchronous again, since we're using Mongoose to connect the backend to the database. And we are gonna need to use async and wait. So this is async, we're gonna be using also wait, so we can use our asynchronous handler. There is a package that is named express async handler, and this is the one that we're gonna be installing. So we can stop the server for a moment, and okay, and we're gonna be installing, it's gonna be npm install, and it's named express hyphen async, like this, and handler. So this is gonna allow us to use async and wait. Okay, so if you can go to your package.json, and inside of dependencies, you can see that we have installed the package express async handler 1.2.0. So we're just gonna clean it up here, and now we need to bring it in the tab. So we're gonna name it async handler, like this, and we're gonna require it, and it's gonna be express, okay, it's that below, express async handler, like that. Okay, so we have that up to this point. And let me see, what else do we have here? Okay, so we just connected it to our database. So now we're gonna create our model. Okay, so inside of the folder model, we're gonna name it example, or examples model, like this. Yeah, example model, and we're gonna be using camel notation, like that. Okay, so what we're gonna be using this time is we're gonna bring in Mongoose. So it's gonna be the example, this is our model, so we're gonna bring Mongoose, and as you can see, you can follow this example here, but in this particular example, we're gonna bring Mongoose, like that, and we're gonna require it, like this. So it's gonna be Mongoose, like that. Below that, we're gonna create our schema, so it's gonna be const, and it's gonna be, since my collection is named example, I'm gonna name it example schema, like this, with camel notation. So, and we're gonna set it to mongoose dot schema. Okay, so we're gonna open parentheses, we're gonna open curly braces, and here is where we put our fields. As you can see how they are doing it, so let me see. Okay, so yeah, I mean, they're creating their schema, Mongoose, and here they have some fields. So the only field that we are gonna have is gonna be text, the text field. We're gonna put colon, and we're gonna have the type, and the type is gonna be a string like this. We're gonna put a comma, and we're gonna have a require, so it's gonna be require. Okay, so it's gonna be colon, we're gonna open brackets, and it's gonna be true, and we're gonna put a message, add an example, like that. Yeah, that is our schema. So just after the curly brace, we are gonna put a comma, we're gonna open a new set of curly braces, and now we're gonna set our time stamps like that, and we are gonna set it to true, like that. So we are gonna have, when we create some information, it's gonna have the values, when was created, when was updated. So this is it's gonna have the time and the date. So that is the reason we are using that timestamps. And now what we need to do is export it. So it's gonna be module.export. Okay, so, and we are gonna export mongoose that model. Okay, so we're gonna open parentheses, and we are gonna open, and we're gonna name it the example model, like that. And we are gonna pass our example schema, so like this, example schema. So these are different. So here inside of the first argument, inside of the single quotes, is gonna be our example model, and the second argument is gonna be our example schema. So we're gonna save it, and now we just exported it, and now we're gonna go into our controllers, and inside of the controllers we're gonna have it here. Where's our controllers here? So below here we're gonna bring it, it's gonna be like this, counts, and we're gonna bring example, the example model, and we're gonna bring it from require, like this, and it's gonna be okay. So we are in the controller file, so it's gonna be do that, and it's gonna be now in the folder model, and it's gonna be example model. So we're gonna save it, and yeah, we have now our example model right here. So we do that, and now we can start creating, we can start using the example model. So here we have the, let me see, we can, okay, I'm gonna put some comments here, and this is gonna be this is the get method, this is the get, like that, just like this, just to differentiate it a little bit. So this is gonna be the post, and let me see, this one is gonna be put. These are our methods, and this is gonna be delete, like this. Okay, so now inside of our get method, let me see, we're gonna create a function, and this function is gonna be named example, like this. And now we're gonna be using the await. So that is the reason that we install this dependency, the express async handler, so we can use the async and await. So we are gonna await, since we are using mongoose and we are awaiting for a promise. Okay, so now we're gonna be using So now we're gonna be using our model, and our model is name as example. um, we type that, and we are gonna have a bunch of methods here. So we're gonna be using the find method, and we are just gonna put parentheses here. So we're gonna find the method, and we're gonna put parentheses, and when we have the rest.json, let me see, let's save it, and let's start our server, npm run examples, like this. If we go into our postman and I just send, okay, so I still get method, but what I want to get, I don't want to get that, I want to get now the function example. So I'm gonna pass in, I'm gonna save it, and if I go here, okay, so it's working. So if I go into the post, and if I click, I am in the get method, if I click send, what I should get is nothing. It's just an empty set of brackets. Why? Because I haven't posted anything. So the goal of this video is to have in our example a bunch of examples with date, time. So now we are gonna do the same for the post method. And again, we're gonna have accounts. We're gonna have this function, this time example, since we're gonna be creating, and we are gonna await, and we are gonna wait for the example. And this is, again, remember that this is our model, so we're gonna await for that. And now we're gonna be using the find by, okay, it's gonna be find, it's gonna be find by, and just like this. And we, okay, so we need to delete this part here. We need to delete this part here. Right now, okay, we're gonna have the examples like this. We're gonna wait for the examples, and now we are gonna pass in the examples here like this, and we're gonna go to our postman, and let's see if I type, okay, I go to the body, inside of the body, and I have this text with this value. Let's put it, okay, let's put it first example like this, and I send it. Okay, so nothing is happening because we need to pass him with a okay, const example await, and we need the request that parameter ID. So let me see, what we need to do in this case is we are not updating it, we are creating it. So we need to use the create method. So it's gonna be like this, and we are gonna create it. So we're gonna have this method here, create, and inside of the create method we are gonna open curly braces, and we are gonna have the field of text, and it's gonna be request that body that text, because this is what we have, the request that body that text like this, and we are gonna save it. And now we should be able to create. Let me see, I'm gonna return, we're gonna be returning example. Now this is the get, so we are in res.json, and we are gonna be returning example. So now it should work. So if we go to our post method and we go into body and we have the keys text and the values first example and we click send. Okay, so now it's working. Okay, so now as you can see here, we have the text. This is the text field first example. We have an ID. This is the ID that Mongoose give us. These two are create ad and updated ad. This is the time stamp, so as you can see it has the time here. So as you can see, we have this function name examples. We are awaiting it since this is asynchronous. We have the example model. This is our example model, and we have this method here that is create. So that is the reason that we can create posts here. We can create examples, and we have, if we can go to the get method, and right now we have nothing, it's empty, but if we click send, we should have this method that or this example that we just created. So if we click it, and we have here this example, and now if we go to our database and we refresh it, we should be able to have some information inside of our example collections. So we have, as you can see, we have this, the ID, we have the subject, we have the text first example, and the timestamps. So that is that. And now, okay, what else do we have here? Now we can go into our update, and what we are gonna have here is gonna be different this time. So we're gonna have this function name example. Okay, so we're gonna await, since this is asynchronous, we are awaiting for a promise. We're gonna be using this model, and the model name is example. Okay, example. And again, remember that you need to bring the example model from our model folder, from the example.model file, and also we need to be using this function the async handler from the express async handler package management. Okay, so we are here in the put and the update, and now we're gonna use this method find by ID. Okay, so that's what I mess up in the post method. So now we're in the put method, and now it's gonna be find by ID. As you can see, we have a bunch of options: find by ID, and delete. And this is gonna be the next one that we are gonna be using for the delete method. But for now, we're gonna be using the find by ID method. To find it by the ID, we need to use the request that params that ID, like that. And let me see if I have it here. Well, you can request that parents. If you go into Express and you go here into request that parents, you can read more about it. But this is how we get the information, we get the ID. So we have the find by ID request that params. Okay, so below that, let's say if our example is not here, so if our example is not here, what we are gonna do is we're gonna have some message. So we're gonna return, but it's gonna be a res.json. It's gonna be a res.json, and we're gonna return a message. We can put in, I don't know, but example not found, like that. It's gonna be example not found, like this. Example not found. Okay, and this has to be in single quotes, example not found. And you can put here, I don't know, message like this, message like that. And also you can put a status like this, status like that, and then you chain it. And the status is gonna be 400 about request, so we can save it up to this point. So if the example is not there, so we're gonna throw in this message example not found. If it is, we're gonna create a function, and the name is gonna be example model, no, example update. Okay, yeah, it's gonna be example update like that, update, example update, and we are gonna set it to, or yeah, example update is fine. And again, all these are asynchronous functions, so we're gonna await for the example model, and now we're gonna be using this method find by ID and update. As you can see, find by ID and update. And let me show you something. You just type in that and you just press find, and you're gonna have a bunch of options here: find by ID and remove, find by ID and delete, find by ID and update, and find one and replace. But we're just gonna find by ID and update. And now we're gonna find it by the ID and update it, and the ID is gonna be request that params that ID like that. And this is gonna be the first parameter. The second parameter is gonna be the request that body, and as you can see, I am referring to this one, request that body. So, and the third parameter is gonna be curly braces, and it's just gonna have new, and it's gonna be true in case it's gonna be true in case it doesn't exist and we just created it. I mean, in case it doesn't exist and it has to create it. So we're gonna save it. And okay, so we don't want to return any of this, so what we are gonna do is we're gonna delete this part, and we're gonna return the example update. So okay, like that. Okay, we save it, and now we're gonna go to our put method. As you can see, I have 4 tabs. This is my first tab is the get method, the second is the post method, put method, and delete method. So I am in my put method here. And okay, so I'm gonna go into my get method, and I'm gonna grab the ID. So I have an ID here, so you grab the ID, you go to your put method, and after example slash you paste in the ID. So I'm gonna go into the body. The text is gonna be the same, and instead of typing second, we can just modify it like this, modify or update it, example, and we're gonna click send. So let's see. Okay, so it has been modified, so it has the ID is the same, but the text has been modified, and it has the timestamps, the created at, updated at. So now if we go to our get method, we're gonna have this first example. So it has been updated, it has been modified. If I click send, so we no longer have it. We have now the modified example. And if we go to our MongoDB database, and I just click here, refresh it, so I still have the first example. So let's refresh it here. Let me see. and it should have been modified. So yeah, modify example. So that is that. And now finally we're gonna move into the delete method. So we can just copy this whole thing from here. Let me see this whole thing. No, it's not gonna be fine. Let's just copy this too. Oh, let me see. Oh, we can just, yeah, let's just type it in. So it's gonna be, we're gonna create a constant. So we're gonna create a constant, and this name is gonna be example. Okay, so we're gonna await, and we're gonna wait for the model, and in our case the model name is example. So we're gonna find it by the ID. First we're gonna be, before we delete something we need to find it, so that is the reason I'm finding it by the ID. And to do that we're going to be using request.params.id. so it's pretty much the same as the previous one, except for some, okay, so but if it doesn't exist, if it hasn't been created, so if there is no example like that, we're gonna throw a message, and the message is gonna be, I'm just gonna grab this, it's gonna be this message, it's gonna be the request, it's gonna be the res that starts 400.json, and the message example not found. Oh, okay, found, example not found, like this, example not found. Okay, I need to type better, so that is that. So it's pretty much the same up to this point, but now we're gonna create a function, and it's gonna be delete, or we can create, it's gonna be example, you can name it whatever you want, example delete, and I'm using camel notation. I'm gonna await, okay, I'm gonna await, and I'm gonna wait for my model that is gonna be example. And now I'm gonna use a method, and it's gonna be find by ID and delete. So as you can see here, it's gonna be find by ID and delete. So we're gonna find it first by the ID, and to do that we're gonna use the request.params.id, and since I'm using this method, is gonna find it and then delete it. So we're gonna save it, and again, so what we are gonna return is gonna be example. It's gonna be example delete. Okay, so if you pass in the example delete, it's gonna return the whole thing, the whole information. It's gonna return the ID, the text, they created that, they updated that. So let me see something here. Let me see something. Okay, so we're gonna go to the delete, and now we're gonna grab, okay, so we're gonna grab this ID here. So, or let's create something. So it's gonna be, let's go to the post method, and it's gonna be final, or okay, let's to be deleted example. So we're gonna send, okay, so to be deleted example, like that. Now we're gonna go to our get method, we're gonna send it. So we should have two examples, the modify example and the to be deleted. Okay, so we have two. If we go to our database and we refresh it, okay, as you can see, we have two. We have the modify example, and we have the to be deleted example, like that. So let's go to our postman, and now we'll go to the delete tab method, and now I'm gonna grab the ID that we just created. It's gonna be this ID, and I'm gonna delete it. So I'm gonna delete it. So this is a delete method. So after the example slash, I'm gonna type in the ID, I'm gonna click send, and it has been deleted. And as you can see, it gives us the ID, it gives us the text, the created app, and the updated app. So if we go to our get method and we click send, we only should have the modify example. So if we go to our database, instead of having two examples, we only have one, the modify example. We shouldn't have the to be deleted example like that, so we only have one. And if you don't wanna, as you can see, when we delete it, it shows us the whole information, the ID, the text, the created that. If you don't wanna do that, instead of example that delete, what we can do is we can pass in, we can open curly braces, we can type in ID colon, and then request that params that ID, since we are using the request that params that ID to find the ID. So we click that, and now let's delete. Okay, let's create another one. Let's go to the post method, and let's put deleted. I don't know, let's put delete like that, delete, and let's just click send. So we have this new text, it's gonna be delete. We're gonna go to the get method, and now we should have to modify example and delete. So now let's grab the ID of delete. Let's just grab this whole ID, and we're gonna paste it right now. And if I click send, I should only see the ID, I shouldn't see the text, created that, updated that. So let's click send, and as you can see, we only have the ID this time. If you want to do that, or you can just get the whole thing and just put in the name of this function that we created here, example delete, like that. And as you can see, we have here this example, the cons example, but this is only for finding the ID. We are trying to find the ID. If there is no ID, we are throwing a message, and to throw that message, we do that using that JSON. That is what allow us to send a message, example not found. So that is that. Let me see if I go here into the okay, example not found, and below that we're gonna create a new function, and this time the name is gonna be example delete. So we are gonna await for the model example, and we are gonna chain it to the method, and the method is gonna be find by ID and delete. So once we find the ID, we're gonna delete it, and that is done by using the request that params that ID.